Imagine discovering a rule so powerful that every fairy tale in the world agrees with it. A rule that, if followed, could completely transform your life. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, along with his collaborator Marie-Louise von Franz, spent decades studying thousands of fairy tales from all cultures. They discovered something shocking. Practically everything in fairy tales contradicts itself. Some stories say to fight evil, others say to run from it. Some preach honesty, others defend lying when necessary. But there is one single exception. One rule that was never broken in any fairy tale studied. And when Jung discovered this rule, he realized he had found the most important secret to a fulfilling life. Get ready, because what you're about to discover today may completely change your perspective on how to live. For over 3 decades, Marie-Louise von Franz immersed herself in the world of fairy tales. This Swiss psychologist worked closely with Carl Jung on a specific mission. She wanted to uncover the universal lessons hidden in these ancient stories that had survived through the ages. Jung believed fairy tales were like X-rays of the human soul. They revealed deep truths about our most primitive and authentic nature. To him, these stories contained the full anatomy of the human being. Von Franz began her journey with great scientific expectation and optimism. She hoped to find clear and consistent moral principles that could guide all of humanity. After all, if these stories had survived for thousands of years, they must carry unquestionable universal wisdom. But the reality was far different from what she expected, and much more disturbing. The more she studied, the more she noticed a completely contradictory and confusing pattern. For every moral lesson found, there was another tale preaching the exact opposite. Some tales taught that when faced with evil, you must fight with all your strength. Others whispered that the best strategy is to flee quickly and preserve your life. Some exalted honesty as the supreme virtue, even in the face of the devil himself. But just as many stories showed protagonists lying cleverly to escape danger. It was as if folk wisdom was completely schizophrenic, with no clear moral direction. This discovery initially deeply disappointed and frustrated von Franz. How could something so contradictory contain real, applicable wisdom for life? How could she extract practical lessons from such inconsistent and seemingly illogical material? She had devoted years of her life hoping to find a clear moral guide, only to discover intellectual chaos and unprecedented ethical confusion. Her research seemed like a complete scientific and personal failure. But something extraordinary happened when she shared this frustration with Jung. The master psychologist wasn't disappointed at all. On the contrary, his eyes lit up with a deep and revealing understanding. Jung immediately saw that this contradiction wasn't a flaw in fairy tales, it was the whole point of their ancestral wisdom. Jung explained something to von Franz that would forever change her view of fairy tales. The contradiction wasn't a problem to be solved, it was the very essence of human wisdom. Think about it, if there were only one correct way to handle situations, we'd be robots. Real life is infinitely complex, and every situation is completely unique in the universe. What works perfectly in one circumstance can be absolutely disastrous in another. A parent may need to be firm with one rebellious child, but gentle with another emotionally fragile one. The same person may need to fight bravely for their rights at work, but that same person may need to completely yield in a delicate family conflict. There is no single formula for all of life's situations. Von Franz finally understood the brilliance of the psychological discovery she had made. If the collective material of the tales is completely contradictory, Only then can we have an individual and free conscious superstructure over the basic opposites. In other words, it is precisely because there is no single formula that we are forced to develop individuality. When we face a real ethical dilemma, we can't just consult a manual. We must look inward and make a choice that reflects our true essence. Imagine if all fairy tales taught the exact same moral lesson. If they all said always be honest, or always fight evil without exception. In that case, we wouldn't need to develop our own judgment, individual conscience, or authentic character. We'd all be exactly the same, automatically following the same rules, like programmed robots. There would be no room for personal growth, individual discovery, or development of our unique personality. Life would be completely predictable and colorless. But the truth is that life constantly presents us with impossible situations, dilemmas with no obvious answer, conflicts between equally important values, choices where any decision will carry painful consequences. It's in these moments of uncertainty that we are forced to connect with something deeper. It's when we develop what Jung called authentic and responsible individuality. The contradiction in fairy tales is not a flaw in the wisdom system. It's an invitation for each person to develop their own unique inner moral compass. Each of us must find our own way to navigate the challenges of existence. But then von Franz made an even more extraordinary and revolutionary discovery. Amid all the seemingly chaotic contradictions, she found one absolutely universal exception, a rule that, in no fairy tale from any culture, was ever broken, not even once. And this rule was deceptively simple: never harm the animal that helps you on your journey. At first glance, this might seem like just a technical detail from traditional fairy tales. After all, who hasn't heard stories where a cat, bird, or horse helps the hero? But Jung immediately recognized that this rule contained a profound psychological truth about human nature. The helpful animal in fairy tales represents our most authentic and wise inner voice. It is that intuition that whispers when we're about to make an important decision. It's the chill in our gut when something feels off. It's the excitement that rises when we're on the right path for our life. It's our deepest conscience trying to guide us through the complexity of human existence. Von Franz explained with scientific clarity, obedience to our most basic inner being is the one thing more essential than anything else. Across all nations and fairy tale material, I never found a different statement. Think about your own life for a moment and be completely honest with yourself. How many times have you had a gut feeling about someone and ignored it completely? How many times did your instinct clearly say, "Don't do this," but you did it anyway? How many times did you know, deep in your soul, what the right decision was, but chose the easier or more socially acceptable path out of fear? How often have you betrayed your own inner wisdom for convenience or cowardice? That inner voice, our authentic conscience, is exactly like the helpful animal in fairy tales. It's always trying to guide us away from real danger, and always directing us toward our true potential for growth and fulfillment. But just like the foolish heroes in fairy tales who mistreat their magical animal guides, we often ignore this inner wisdom. Or worse, we actively silence that voice when it disturbs us with its inconvenient truths. The difference is, in fairy tales, mistreating the helpful animal always leads to ruin. The hero loses their magical powers, gets lost in the dark forest, or completely fails their mission. In real life, ignoring our authentic conscience has equally devastating consequences, though more subtle. Jung observed something deeply troubling in modern society. Most people live in constant war with their own conscience. They've developed a deep fear of following their inner voice, especially when that voice would lead them against social or family expectations. The word conscience itself reveals its importance. It comes from Latin and literally means special knowledge or shared knowing. It's not just intellectual knowledge, but a special kind of emotional certainty about the moral value of our actions and motivations. When our conscience speaks, it rarely uses words. Instead, it shows up through intense emotions and bodily sensations. A tight chest when we're about to betray our values. A sense of lightness when we make the right decision. A weight in the stomach when we're living a lie. Jung noted that many cultures consider the conscience to be the voice of God speaking through us. That shows the tremendous power of this human faculty. But it also explains why following it can be so frightening. It means taking full responsibility for our choices. The problem arises when our conscience conflicts with social norms, Jung observed. Conscience, no matter what it's based on, commands the individual to obey his inner voice, even at the risk of going astray. We can try to justify disobeying it by appealing to society's moral code. But this comes with an uncomfortable sense of disloyalty. Most people have an instinctive terror of going against what's socially accepted. When faced with the dilemma of obeying their conscience or conforming, they choose the latter. But this choice carries a devastating cost, a persistent feeling of living a lie. Jung described this condition perfectly. Observance of customs and laws can easily become a cloak for a lie so subtle that our fellows are unable to detect it. It may help us escape all criticism. We may even deceive ourselves into believing in our obvious righteousness, but deep down, he hears a voice whispering, "Something's not right." But Jung also warned us about a subtle and extremely important danger. Not every inner voice is our authentic conscience. There is a crucial difference between our true conscience and our false conscience. Confusing the two can be absolutely devastating. Our true conscience guides us toward growth, integrity, and our highest potential. It may ask us to do difficult things, but those difficulties always serve a greater purpose. It may ask us to confront someone who consistently mistreats us, to leave a job that doesn't fulfill us as human beings, or to take on responsibilities we'd rather avoid out of laziness or fear. But these actions always lead us to a better place. Our false conscience, on the other hand, is seductive and ultimately destructive. Jung described it as the one that exaggerates, perverts, and twists evil into good and good into evil. And it does this with the same urgency and emotional intensity as the real conscience. So how can we safely tell the difference between the two? Jung gave us a valuable clue. All haste is of the devil. Our false conscience always pressures us toward impulsive, immediate action. It creates an artificial sense of urgency, as if we must act right now or lose a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Our true conscience, by contrast, is patient and wise. It can give us a clear sense of direction for our life, but rarely pushes us toward hasty decisions that can be harmful. When facing a genuinely difficult moral dilemma, Jung recommended slowing down completely, giving time for the unconscious to simmer with the problem without rushing. Von Franz explained this process. Jung observed that if someone simmers long enough in the agony of such a conflict, then an inner line becomes clear. This inner development gives us enough clarity to keep moving forward on our true path. Even at the risk of making a mistake, we gain inner peace. This is a crucial point. Even when following our true conscience, we can never have absolute certainty we're doing the right thing. Life always involves an element of faith, a leap into the unknown. But Jung argued that it's far better to take that risk by following our authentic inner voice, rather than living in the false certainty of empty social conformity. The difference lies in the quality of the uncertainty we experience. When we follow our true conscience, we may be unsure about the outcome, but we're at peace with the process. When we follow a false conscience or ignore our inner voice, we may have social approval, but live with a quiet, constant unrest that never fully goes away. South African writer Laurens van der Post, deeply influenced by Jung, perfectly captured this universal human dilemma. In one of his novels, he wrote about two types of contracts that every human being holds simultaneously, and the conflict between these contracts defines our happiness or suffering. The first is our contract with the community where we were born and raised. This contract is important and should not be carelessly discarded. We have real responsibilities to our families, our friends, our society. These bonds give us identity, emotional support, and a fundamental sense of belonging. But above that social contract exists an even more fundamental one, our personal contract with life itself. This contract is entirely between us and existence, and nothing, not even community, can be allowed to suppress it. Van der Post described the consequences of breaking each type of contract with great clarity. When we break our social contract, we may face criticism, disapproval, even social rejection. This can be painful and frightening. Losing social approval is one of the hardest things. But when we break our personal contract with life, when we betray our authentic conscience, we face something much worse. No man can refuse to obey this voice and ever know peace again, Van der Post wrote. The unrest, the unease, and even the hostility of our neighbors are painful. But everything that may come from breaking the social contract is a peace that passes all understanding. It's far more bearable than what happens when we betray our contract with life. This may be the deepest insight of all Jungian psychology revealed here. The greatest human suffering doesn't come from difficult external circumstances. It comes from living out of alignment with our most authentic nature. We can endure poverty, illness, even persecution, if we are living in accordance with our true conscience. But when we systematically betray our inner voice, we develop what Dostoevsky called the illness of the self. Guilt, shame, regret, and a sense of being an imposter begin to eat us alive. We lose touch with who we truly are as unique beings. The tragedy is that many people spend their entire lives in this state of self-betrayal, without even realizing that there's another way to live. They accept inner restlessness as normal and never discover the deep peace that comes from living authentically, in harmony with their true conscience. The discovery of Jung and von Franz offers us a map to a more meaningful and authentic life. The universal rule of fairy tales, never harm the animal that helps you, is really a powerful invitation. An invitation to honor our deepest inner wisdom. Your authentic conscience is speaking to you right now as you watch this video. Maybe through a sensation in your body, a subtle emotion, or simply an unexplainable knowing. Maybe about a decision you need to make in your life. The question isn't whether that voice exists, it always has. The question is whether you'll have the courage to listen to it and follow it, even when it means going against social or family expectations you've carried for years. Remember, following your conscience doesn't mean being impulsive or selfish in an irresponsible way. It means slowing down, tuning in to your deepest wisdom, and making choices that reflect who you truly are, even when it's hard or unpopular with the people around you. The helpful animal from the fairy tales is waiting to guide you on your own heroic journey. The only question left is, will you have the courage to follow where it leads? Your authentic life depends entirely on that answer. And as Jung discovered through decades of research, it is literally the only rule that truly matters. You are the hero of your story, and your journey toward a more authentic life begins right now. If this video stirred something deep inside you, leave a like so the algorithm can help more people hear this message. And subscribe to the channel. We've got much more transformative content coming your way. Your authentic conscience thanks you, and so do we.